The cultural identity of the Arapaho people, who refer to themselves as the Hinonoeno, variously translated as our people, or people of our own kind, is inextricably linked to a narrative of continuous movement and spiritual covenant. Within the framework of Algonquian linguistics, the Arapaho represent an ancient branch that diverged from their eastern woodland relatives long before the sustained contact of European expansion. Their self-designation, Hinonoeno, serves as a socio-linguistic marker of ethnic exclusivity and communal cohesion, distinguishing them from the other within the vast landscape of the North American interior. The traditional origins of the Arapaho place them far to the northeast of their 19th century homelands in Colorado and Wyoming. Oral histories and ethnographic reconstructions suggest a sedentary, horticultural existence in the Red River Valley of northern Minnesota and the Saskatchewan River region. Tribal memory preserves the account of a seminal migration, characterized by the crossing of a great frozen river to the north, which historians and geographers identify as likely being the Missouri River. This crossing represents a fundamental threshold in the Arapaho experience, marking the transition from a riverine, village-based society to the nomadic equestrian culture that would eventually dominate the High Plains. Unlike many of their contemporaries who migrated onto the plains in the late 18th century, the Arapaho's historical memory of farming is often described as vestigial or entirely absent in some bands, although certain divisions carried a sacred stone resembling an ear of corn as a symbolic remnant of their horticultural past. This shift in subsistence strategy was not merely an economic change, but a profound sociological transformation. The Arapaho did not just adapt to the plains, they reimagined their entire social and spiritual structure around the buffalo and the horse, becoming central figures in the classic High Plains culture, alongside traditional allies like the Cheyenne and Gros Ventre. The internal organization of the Arapaho people historically rested upon a complex structure of 5 distinct divisions, each characterized by its own dialect and unique socio-political identity. These divisions were not arbitrary groupings, but were seen as distinct yet cognate tribes that occasionally acted as a unified political entity while maintaining separate ethnic identities through much of their history. The consolidation of these groups into the modern Arapaho Nation was a process of gradual integration, influenced by external pressures from enemy tribes and the encroaching white settlement. By the late 18th century, the 4 southernmost divisions consolidated, while the northernmost group, the Haninin, maintained a separate trajectory. The hierarchy and geographic distribution of the 5 nations were meticulously recorded by ethnographers like Alfred Kruber, who identified them along a south-to-north axis. Nanwachina Ha'ana, Nawatanehena, known as Toward the South People or Southern People, they possessed a dialect that was the most divergent from the others, which eventually became extinct as they merged into the Southern Arapaho bands. Hanahawina, translated as the Rock Men, this group occupied a central geographic position. Their dialect was noted by elders as particularly difficult to comprehend, suggesting a long period of distinct development before tribal consolidation. Hinonoeno, the Arapaho proper, or people of our own kind. They were the dominant cultural and linguistic force, and their dialect became the standard for the modern Arapaho language. Bezawineno, the Big Lodge people, or shelter men. Historically, they have been dispersed among the other Arapaho groups for over 150 years, yet they maintain distinct roles in the tribe's ritualistic life. Haninin, known as the White Clay people, or the historic Gros Ventre, they remain the northernmost group and were eventually identified by the French as a separate nation, though the other Arapaho groups occasionally referred to them as begging men or spongers due to their perceived distinctiveness. The 19th century division into the northern and southern Arapaho was not an original tribal structure, but a response to the shifting economic landscape of the plains. The establishment of permanent trading posts, such as Bent's Fort on the Arkansas River and Fort Laramie on the North Platte, created 2 distinct hubs of interaction for the Arapaho bands. Bands that traditionally hunted and wintered along the North Platte and the mountains of Wyoming became the Northern Arapaho, Yonanghan Sinanan, or sagebrush people, while those who gravitated toward the Arkansas River Valley and the Southern Plains became the Southern Arapaho, Nanwinanan, or Southern people. This geographic separation was codified by the U.S. government through the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1851, which fixed tribal boundaries but ultimately led to the permanent relocation of the two branches to different reservations in Wyoming and Oklahoma. The Arapaho worldview is grounded in a profound creation myth that establishes the tribe's central place in the universe. In this cosmology, the earth was created not by chance, but as a place of refuge for the most sacred object in existence, the flat pipe. The creation narrative begins with a world of water, where a man carrying the flat pipe walked alone for 4 days and nights. To protect the pipe and provide it with a place to rest, the man called upon the four directions and the creatures of the deep to find land. The narrative follows a ritualistic structure of failure and eventual success. The attempts. 6 successive dives were made by various creatures: the grebe, waterfowls, the kingfisher, the otter, the beaver, the coot, and various snakes, all of whom failed to reach the bottom. The 7th dive. On the 7th attempt, the man ritually moved the flat pipe 4 times and touched it to his body, transforming it into a red-headed duck. Accompanied by a turtle, the duck dove to the bottom and brought up a sod of earth, the foundation. The man dried the earth and cast it in the 4 cardinal directions: southeast, southwest, northwest, and northeast, creating the habitable world. The flat pipe, also known as secha, remains the tribal medicine of the northern Arapaho and is held in greater veneration than any other force, including the sun. Its keeper, traditionally a member of the northern band, acts as the spiritual custodian for the entire nation. The pipe is viewed as a good counselor and a symbol of the covenant between the Arapaho and the life force that created the world. Complementing the ritual of the flat pipe is the Offerings Lodge, commonly known as the Sun Dance. This is the preeminent tribal ceremony, representing a collective prayer for the renewal of the earth and the prosperity of the people. The Sun Dance is usually precipitated by an individual's religious vow in exchange for supernatural aid. It involves a grueling period of fasting and prayer, culminating in 4 days of public dancing and sacrifice. The physical center of the ceremony is a cottonwood tree, felled and erected as a world tree that links the earth and the sky. In historical times, this included the practice of piercing, where dancers were suspended by pegs through their skin as an ultimate act of sacrifice to the Creator. The social order of the Arapaho was governed by a unique system of age-graded societies, which provided a structured pathway for men to move from youth to elderhood while performing essential political and social duties. These societies were not hereditary, but were entered as groups of age mates, with each stage requiring a religious vow and specific initiation rites. The societies served as the primary mechanism for maintaining camp order and managing the communal buffalo hunt. Youth societies. These were the training grounds for young boys, where they learned the discipline and skills necessary for the hunt and for war. The soldier societies. Often referred to as dog soldiers in related contexts, these men were the camp police. They ensured that individuals did not hunt prematurely and disturb the buffalo herds, which could lead to starvation for the entire band. The mature societies involved more complex spiritual and political duties, including the negotiation of alliances and the leadership of war parties. The elder societies. These were the sagebrush people in a literal sense, the custodians of the medicine bundles and the wisdom of the tribe. They supervised all rituals and provided counsel to the chiefs. Interestingly, the Arapaho system recognized the essential role of women in this progression. Wives were considered to advance through the grades alongside their husbands, and there were 7 dedicated women's societies that possessed their own medicine bags and symbolic implements of power. The transition to a nomadic lifestyle required a sophisticated understanding of the high plains ecology. Arapaho territory was a diverse landscape of semi-arid sagebrush tracts, short grass plains, and pine-clad mountain slopes. The Arapaho were classic equestrian buffalo hunters. The horse, which they had acquired by the 1740s, was the catalyst for their expansion across the plains. Buffalo provided everything: food, clothing, tools, and the hides for their portable teepees. Arapaho women were the architects of the camp. They were responsible for the labor-intensive process of tanning hides, scraping flesh, drying raw hide, and using a mixture of brains and fats to turn stiff skins into soft buckskin. They were also the gatherers of essential plant foods, utilizing a wide variety of flora that mirrored those used by their Cheyenne allies. Clothing was a primary canvas for artistic and spiritual expression. Women wore ankle-length fringed buckskin dresses, decorated with porcupine quills, elk teeth, and later beads. Men wore breechcloths and hip-length deerskin leggings, often adorned with bands of quill work. In the 19th century, warriors began wearing hairpipe bead breastplates and necklaces with symbolic designs based on their dreams and visions. The 1858 discovery of gold near present-day Denver electrified the United States and sent an estimated 150,000 gold seekers into the heart of Arapaho territory. This influx disrupted the bison herds and placed immediate, catastrophic pressure on the indigenous inhabitants. Little Raven, born around 1810, was the principal chief of the southern Arapaho and a man of noted intelligence and oratory. His leadership was defined by a commitment to peace and accommodation. Little Raven believed that the survival of his people lay in maintaining a relationship with the U.S. government, even as that government repeatedly violated its treaties. He signed the Treaty of Fort Wise in 1861, which traded vast tracts of land for a small reservation along the Arkansas River, hoping that financial support and access to hunting grounds would sustain his people. Despite these efforts, Little Raven often found himself caught between the violent incursions of white settlers and the retaliatory raids of young warriors. Niwot, or Left Hand, was a linguist and diplomat who spent the final years of his life attempting to prevent a general war. Fluent in English, which he learned as a boy from his brother-in-law, the trader John Poisel, Niwot acted as the primary interpreter for leaders like Little Raven and the Cheyenne chief Black Kettle. Niwot's methods of diplomacy were remarkably modern. He would visit the offices of the Rocky Mountain News to correct inflammatory stories about Arapaho attacks, demanding reparations in food and clothing for his people when settlers were the aggressors. In a dramatic display of his desire for coexistence, he once took 10 warriors to a theater performance in Denver, jumping on stage after the play to tell the audience that his people wanted peace. In the summer of 1864, as violence escalated, Niwot and Black Kettle worked to ransom white captives from hostile bands using their own ponies and robes as payment, specifically delivering 17-year-old Laura Roper safely to an army camp to prove their peaceful intentions. The peaceful efforts of Niwot and Little Raven were ultimately betrayed by the Colorado territorial government. In August 1864, Governor John Evans issued a proclamation that all hostile Indians would be destroyed and authorized the arming of militias to pursue any indigenous people who did not seek safety near a military fort. Believing they were under U.S. military protection, a peaceful band of Arapaho and Cheyenne, including Chiefs Black Kettle, White Antelope, and Left Hand, camped at Big Sandy Creek, 40 miles north of Fort Lyon. On November 29, 1864, Colonel John M. Chivington led 675 volunteer soldiers in a surprise attack on the village. Despite the white flag of truce, the soldiers murdered and mutilated approximately 230 people, most of whom were women, children, and elders. Niwot was mortally wounded during the attack, a tragic end for a man who had spent his life advocating for peace. Little Raven and his band survived only because they were camped farther away from the main village. The Sand Creek Massacre touched off widespread conflict throughout 1864 to 65. The survivors were driven north and south, with many joining their Lakota and Cheyenne relatives in the Powder River country to fight a desperate war for survival. While the southern Arapaho were eventually forced into Indian territory, the northern Arapaho continued to resist the white invasion of their hunting grounds. They were key participants in Red Cloud's War, 1866-67, which was sparked by the building of the Bozeman Trail into Montana. The northern Arapaho, fighting alongside the Sioux and Cheyenne, were victorious in this conflict, forcing the U.S. government to abandon its forts. However, the victory was temporary. Following the Great Sioux War and the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, in which some Arapaho participated, the U.S. government intensified its efforts to confine all tribes to reservations. For 10 years after the Treaty of 1868, the northern Arapaho were without a dedicated homeland. They rejected offers to move to the Missouri River or Oklahoma, as these locations were too far from their traditional mountain home and populated by many enemies. By the mid-1870s, the tribe was in a desperate state, with children starving to death and families forced to eat their own horses. In the spring of 1878, approximately 950 northern Arapaho arrived under Army escort at the Eastern Shoshone Reservation in the Wind River Valley of Wyoming. This move was intended to be temporary, but became permanent.